With yesterday's update to Modern Warfare, we mentioned that we got a rather pleasant surprise along with it. That surprise being the fact that we had our first substantial changes to weapons for the first time in a while. But not only that, it was just weapon balancing, but it was two weapons that are used the most: the M4A1 and the MP5, and as well a couple elsewhere, but the big ticket items of the M4A1 and the MP5, the kings of Modern Warfare, they got nerfed. Some people were asking for this for quite some time, but we'd never seen it really come to fruition until yesterday. So with the adjustments made, just how much did it knock these weapons down from their thrones of power and popularity? Did it really even do that at all? Is it something you may notice in game? And that's the stuff I want to discuss here with you today and let you know just where these may fall in the grand scheme of things now with Modern Warfare. So as we go along, let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below on the update, the adjustments made to the weapons. Are you happy with them? Do you want to see more made to these weapons, or perhaps do you want to see another weapon adjusted? And if so, which weapon and why? If you're also new to the channel as well, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare on a daily basis. But anyways, let's begin. So with yesterday's update, we again ended up seeing the changes to the MP5 of a reduction of the headshot multiplier and a small reduction to the 10mm range with the attachment on that. With the M4A1, it was listed that we would see a small damage decrease to reduce the headshot effectiveness of the M4, and then a small reduction to the range of the weapon as well. Now, when you look at these effectively, we can break these down into two categories: statistical, raw data, but then also the feel of the weapon in an online environment. For the M4A1, the only discernible difference was a medium range damage reduction from a value of 23 damage per shot down to 22 damage per shot. On paper, that doesn't seem like a whole lot much of a change, but in reality, the implications of these changes, while still limited, can be charted out fully. When you look at the M4A1, this means that you'd need to land an extra headshot at range to secure a kill rather than before. Beforehand, given the M4A1's headshot multiplier of 1.5, you could just eclipse the full 100 damage dealt mark with 3 headshots. This adjustment, though, made to the mid-range damage, that's no longer the case. At mid-range, it would now require 4 shots to secure the kill and pass that full 100 damage on a non-injured enemy. Again, on paper it's limited, but the implications are seen. It adds a degree of accuracy to maintain a somewhat consistent measure of kill compared to pre-patch. Now, as for the MP5, that's where we see a bit more of a drastic change in comparison to pre-patch. We saw that there was a reduction in the headshot multiplier and a reduction to the effective range of the 10mm rounds. Now, the MP5 pre-patch had a headshot multiplier of 1.6, but now that's dropped down significantly to 1.44, meaning that the close quarters 2-hit kill days are now over if you ended up landing your headshots, which is really where this thing thrived naturally with the standard 9mm rounds, or even again if you had the equipped 10mm rounds on that. But that effective adjustment isn't seen until further ranges, which again was nerfed on the 10mm rounds. Those now have a closer 4-hit kill range as a result, meaning you'll need to drop 5 shots to secure a kill, a little bit closer than you could before. But again, that's on paper. That's what you can physically test and map out for yourselves, but in an online environment, just how much will this translate into noticeable play? This is where we start to get into more anecdotal descriptions of the weapons and the adjustments made. This is something that you may have felt a little bit different than maybe I did, or the other guy watching this video may have. From my own personal standpoint, the weapons are still 100% viable options and still very much so atop their classes respectively. The M4 is still a weapon that reigns supreme. The MP5 is still a weapon that is incredibly versatile and can still challenge some gunfights that otherwise maybe you wouldn't want to take if you weren't using an MP5, and it's still something you'll come in contact with plenty of times within MP. Players are still definitely holding on to this weapon, they're still using it, and you're still going to experience a lot of the same results. However, the changes and their discernible differences come down to more so specialized areas of focus. For the M4, like we talked about, a lot of what it comes down to is adding another headshot on at a distance. And if you're an accurate player, you're definitely going to notice that you'll have that split second more where maybe previously you would have thought, maybe I should have gotten that kill by now. But if you're somebody that plays close quarters mostly with the M4, if it's somebody where you're only going for leg or torso shots, you might not notice it as much in terms of what it feels like. The MP5, you'll probably notice close quarters if you're an accurate player, if you go for those headshots again, but at a distance again, with even those 10mm rounds, you may notice that, whereas it may feel a little bit different when you have something a little bit over range. But at the same time, when you consider those weapons and what changes were made, how they are specialized, how they are a little more focused of adjustments, if you play just to play, you might not notice any sort of change at all. If you're a diehard user of that weapon, maybe, just maybe, you notice it even if you don't go for, again, those headshots or anything like that. But to the majority of players, will it be something that is the be-all end-all and knocks these all the way down to the worst weapons of their categories? Absolutely not. To me, the primary outcome of this weapon really just changes slightly how these weapons fall in line with the rest of their classifications. The M4A1, the MP5, both of those were used well and above any of the other weapons. That's pretty much something that's just simple observation. You don't necessarily need actual data talking about the popularity of each weapon to know that for a fact. You can see that probably by most of what you're killed by in-game or see in the kill feed. But when we take a look at this adjustment and look at the weapon potentials statistically, it seems to me that this is more so just built in line to corral the weapons back into the group of those weapon classifications, either rifles or SMGs. These were the standout weapons by far. Each weapon, of course, is meant to have their own separate attributes that help or hurt a weapon whenever you go and take a look at different scenarios. Not all weapons are going to be an even flat line. Not all weapons are going to be equal across the board. Some are going to have different fire rates. Some are going to have different damage properties. Some are going to have different damage at range properties. Some are going to have different recoil patterns. So when you take a look at all of these weapons, they each have their own attributes that help or hurt the weapon. But the M4A1 and the MP5 were the closest you could probably get to being a uniform flat line of being really good across all of the statistics, maybe not necessarily in-class leaders for every category of statistics, but leading or being above average in enough that it makes it the standout weapon. So it kind of corrals these back in so that all weapons are closer to each other in terms of being practical choices. And I think that's even further evidenced by the changes made to the M13, a weapon that was severely lacking in terms of how practical of a choice it was in the rifle category. It was subpar on basically all levels. It was a good choice, I think, as maybe if you wanted to play it for a close quarters weapon, almost rivaling that of an SMG play, but it didn't really quite play with the big boys of the rifle category, if you want to call it that. Damage-wise, it was outclassed by the Ram, the Kilo, the FAL, the M4A1, the FR556, the Odin, the Scar, and the AK. Literally every rifle, it was the lowest. The recoil pattern made it something that was rather uncontrollable at range unless you had some severe recoil attachments on it, but even still at that point it wasn't anything fantastic. It kicked out to the right tremendously, and really, if you're going again at range, where even in mid-range engagements where rifles are supposed to be supreme, you weren't going to win a lot of those gunfights. So when we see range increases to the M13, reductions to that horizontal recoil that doesn't kick it out as much to the right anymore, when you see that small damage increase to boost the headshot effectiveness, it also works in the same regard oppositely of where they tried to corral the M4, the MP5 by bringing those lower and more in line with the rest of the rifles and the SMGs. It also worked oppositely to bring the lowest up as well. Now, truthfully, I think that the M13 got a little bit more in terms of the effective changes here to it. It definitely feels a lot better than it did before, and preemptively yesterday I played a couple of games with the M13, absolutely shredded with it. You probably saw some of the gameplay as of yesterday. I'm still in awe of how I was able to turn on the one dude while clearing the one flag in deathmatch domination. That one still eludes me, but I played it and I was immediately like, this thing's the best gun in the game now. Is that something that I'd probably walk back that statement? Probably by a little bit, but it's definitely something that's now either mid-tier in terms of that rifle category because of how, again, tighter the recoil spread is now. The damage is better. The rate of fire is still the fastest compared to the rifles if you're not counting the M4 with 9mm rounds. So it brings it up to be a more practical choice. So this update, I'm honestly really happy with. I really enjoyed the fact that, again, it made some changes that we really weren't expecting and more so brought things into play so that it wasn't so much head and shoulders above the rest in terms of classifications. The M4 and MP5 are still both top tier weapons and will likely still be used a ton, probably will still reign supreme for the majority of the year, but the window of competitive advantage is just getting smaller ever so slightly. This update is something that really does prove that, and again, makes some more things contenders in terms of viable weapon options for a lot of scenarios. So overall, I'm happy with this. Is it something that the MP5 and M4A1 changed a drastic amount to which you probably shouldn't use them at all? No, they're still fantastic weapons, and they're still gonna be fantastic weapons, but I wanted to talk to you guys about these changes and the practical differences with them and how much you can actually feel them in game. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Love to get your thoughts and feedback down there. Again, if you could change one weapon, what would it be and why? Let me know in the comments down below what you would change potentially for maybe the next update. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare, updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. stuff we got you covered here on the channel. So if any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter or Instagram, there's the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those. So if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. But with that out of the way, thank you guys all so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.